Sunday's title showdown between Manchester City and Arsenal pits some of the world and Premier League's best players against each other. As you can see, Nick and Doogie are going to be looking at some of those key battles for us. So let's start, shall we, with... should we start with an Arsenal attacker and a Manchester City defender, shall we?
Yeah, why not? Okay. Yeah, let's talk about one of the key clashes this weekend, Ruben Dias against Kai Havertz. Now, in my personal opinion, Ruben Dias has taken a slight drop-off in performance level versus last year. You've seen his aerial duel win rate fall from about 61% to 49%. His tackle success rate is still very solid, but it feels like Nathan Ake is potentially the only City defender that's really kept their level at the same from last year. But Ruben Dias, loads of experience now. But he is coming up against a man in great form in Kai Havertz. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists in his last 6 games for Arsenal. He scored during the international break against France, linking up really well with Jamal Musiala and Florian Wirtz there. So he comes into this game full of confidence.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Havertz as well has a good record against Man City in recent times, at least. He obviously scored the winner in the Champions League final for Chelsea against them. And this season, he did well in the Community Shield as that central striker. As Arsenal won on penalties, he also came off the bench and set up the Martinelli winner at the Emirates Stadium. He does give them that physical sort of ability up front, you know, that outlet that they maybe don't have otherwise. He can win headers, he can win duels, he can bring others into play, he can run in behind as well. So I think Dias is the man they will look to, Man City, to stop him. You know, he's they're probably their best defender in the air, even if his numbers have dipped, as Doogie mentioned. So that will be a really interesting battle. Obviously, Dias dropped against Liverpool. Klopp said that was more about needing pace against Nunez with Akanji, but in this instance, Dias looks like the one who will be asked to stop Kai Havertz.
Yeah, because they will certainly pay Kai Havertz a lot of respect. You mentioned the Champions League final, that ball through from Mason Mount, Kai Havertz on the end of it and scoring to give Chelsea the Champions League trophy. But has the thought been of... There's never any doubting that he's a very talented player, Kai Havertz. It's where do you play him and what do you do with him? Has Mikel Arteta unlocked that conundrum?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think he's, in many ways, a victim of his own versatility, as you say. He's played well in a number of positions over the years. For Bayer Leverkusen, more as a withdrawn 10, sometimes on the left or right of a 4-2-2-2. For Arsenal, he's played very well in that Xhaka role more recently, but it's really at centre-forward where he's put in his best performances for Arsenal now. As you mentioned, pretty much every manager that he's played for, either at international level or at club level, has made him a key part of their side. He hasn't always delivered on a consistent basis, but it's great to see Kai Havertz, who was so maligned when he joined Arsenal for huge money in the summer, really start to repay that transfer fee, with only Saka scoring more league goals than him this season for Arsenal.
OK. No shock to see who's involved in the next key battle that you've picked out.
Yeah, this is a huge one, isn't it? Absolutely huge. Now, Erling Haaland obviously destroyed Arsenal in this game last season, didn't he? He set up the 2 goals for Kevin De Bruyne. He scored the 4th goal himself. But, of course, William Saliba was not playing that day. He was injured. It was Rob Holding instead. So this will be a really interesting duel at the Etihad Stadium. And you have to say, looking at the Emirates game in October, Saliba had the better of it, didn't he? That day, Erling Haaland didn't manage a single shot, let alone score a goal. In the Community Shield as well, Erling Haaland didn't manage a shot in that game. So Saliba does have something to fall back on there. You know, the Arsenal fans will remember that body check on Haaland that went viral at the time of that game. He's had an excellent season, Saliba. A bit of criticism from Didier Deschamps, the France boss, this week, but for Arsenal, he's been absolutely superb. And his task will be to shackle Erling Haaland again. Of course, that's not an easy feat. Haaland is having another spectacular season, and Arsenal know how dangerous he can be. But I think they will be a lot more confident going into this game with Saliba fit and available for sure.
It will be interesting, though. I mean, Saliba didn't necessarily put in his best performance against FC Porto in that second leg, which was a game of huge magnitude as well. I do think he's been pretty imperious, as Nick correctly points out this year. He's been pretty much faultless, but that was a sign of a little bit of shakiness. Erling Haaland is really interesting. More shots on target than this time last year. Higher expected goals per 90 than this time last year. But just underperforming his expected goals, just not being clinical enough in the moment for his first time since joining Borussia Dortmund. There's actually only 3 players in the Premier League, Calvert-Lewin, Nicholas Jackson and Bruno Fernandes, that have underperformed their expected goals by more. you write off Erling Haaland at his peril. He still scored 18 league goals this year, but at this stage last season he'd scored 28. So there has been a notable drop-off. And if Man City don't win the title this year, his performances will come under scrutiny.
Interesting. If it was a battle of the best songs, Saliba, I think, would take it.
Yeah.
OK. Let's move into the engine room, shall we? The midfield. And this has got me excited, this battle between these two players.
Yeah, this is a great one, isn't it? Great one to look forward to. I mean, it's interesting because Rice may not necessarily play as the 6, as Rodri does, of course. He may be more like an 8 with Jorginho in that number 6 role, but that only would mean that he is in direct competition with Rodri more, probably, you'd say, on the pitch. So it will be really interesting to see how this battle pans out. Now, Rodri is kind of the gold standard in his position, isn't he? He's absolutely outstanding. He's top for passes in the Premier League, top for pressured passes as well, which shows his ability in those tight spaces. He is so good on the ball in those situations. So it'll be interesting to see whether he is able to dictate the game to the same extent playing against the midfield containing Rice, because off the ball, of course, Rice is just so effective, so good at anticipating danger, so good at snuffing out counter-attacks. He has added a major strength to Arsenal in that sense and allowed them to dominate games more. So Arsenal will look to him to do those things again, but City for sure will be looking at Rodri to control this game. And remember, Rodri pops up with goals so often, doesn't he? Rice, we've seen his attacking output increase this season, but Rodri, I think it's 18 goals in the last 3 seasons overall, which are incredible numbers for a holding midfielder. So, yeah, it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we mentioned goals, but it does need to come into this discussion, despite both of them being more naturally defensive-minded. I mean, Rice this year scored against Man United, he scored against Chelsea, he scored in that really emotional game for him against West Ham. Rodri is now 60 games unbeaten in all competitions for Man City. Their 3 league defeats this year came when he was suspended. He hasn't lost since February 2023 against Spurs, which is just a mind-blowing record. But I think Rice has said it himself in interviews. He is the gold standard in terms of that position. But we're probably looking at, along with Tchouaméni, along with potentially a fit and on-form Kimmich, we're looking at 2 of the best 4 in that position in world football. And for Declan Rice to be in discussion for probably transfer of the season, despite costing £100 million, just goes to show how excellent he's been for Arsenal and what a difference he's made.
Yeah, very quickly, if he's fit, who's got the job of keeping Bukayo Saka quiet then? Because that will be quite a significant head-to-head.
Yeah, it will be. Nathan Ake has been brilliant this year for Man City. As I say, he's played in a number of different positions for them. He's really proved his worth. Saka, with that injury issue during the international break, he's under a little bit of pressure in this one. Doesn't have necessarily the best record against Man City either.
No, that's right. And Ake did a bit of a number on Saka in the Emirates game last season when Man City won 3-1. He started at centre-back but moved over to left-back as the game went on, and Saka really wasn't able to wield his influence as he normally does. I think Ake, one-on-one, is an excellent defender, and there's a good stat here. He's played roughly 1,700 minutes this season, Ake. A lot of those minutes at left-back, but he's only been dribbled past 5 times. So I think that is one of the reasons why Pep Guardiola may look to use him at left-back against Saka, if indeed Saka is fit. Now, Saka, remember, is in incredible form, more goals and assists than in any previous season at Arsenal. So it will be a fascinating duel again. These two could be battling it out on that side.
Yeah, that's some of the key battles we expect this weekend. But you never know with Pep or with Arteta. Sometimes they come up with something a little left field, which throws everyone. So it might change. But that's the key battles we've looked at ahead of Manchester City against Arsenal. Thank you to you two.